find what is sitting there with the variable. Okay, so to visualize that, we're looking at the side that contains the variable. Okay, so out of this side of the equal sign, we've got a few different things, right? We've got a -8. How are we going to get rid of that -8 in a second? We're going to do +8 in a minute. We also have, what does this mean that I just highlighted in blue? Means divide. How do we get rid of division? We're going to multiply by something in a minute. Okay, then we also have this 4, which is sitting next to the M, which means what? What does it mean when you got something just sitting next to something else? Multiplication, which we're going to cancel out by division. So you have 3 different things you need to cancel out. What confuses kids is that it really doesn't matter necessarily what order you do it in, but you got to remember the rules. So what I mean by that is I've had kids all day that have been like, I'm going to get rid of that 6 first, which is totally fine. Dividing by 6, what's the opposite of dividing by 6? That would be multiplying by 6. If you want to get rid of that 6 first, nothing wrong with that. But here's what I've seen people doing. They multiply this way. They forget adding and subtracting, you only do like terms. Multiplying and dividing, you got to do everything. So that is why instead of starting off with that 6, my recommendation is we get rid of the -8 first. How do you cancel out a -8 again? With a +8, right? So if I do it over there, I also have to do it over here because that is on the opposite side of the equal sign. I'm not going to add that because that is an M. You can't add an M plus a number. So this is going to cancel. That is going to leave me with a 4/6M. And of course, what I did to one side, I had to do to the other. So that left me with a -8. So are we good with that first step so far? Yes. Okay. So then I got to cancel out dividing by 6. And I've got to do it by multiplying by 6. Here's what you're not going to do. Multiply that 6 and that 4 together. What was the whole point of multiplying by 6 in the first place? To get rid of the 6. Those just cancel each other out. So you're not doing 6 times 4. Those 6's are just canceling each other out. So now I still have the 4 sitting there with the M. And I can't forget that if I multiply one side by 6, I have to do the other side. Exactly. So that leaves me -48. So y'all, there's a lot happening here, but none of it's really hard. You just got to take it step by step. How am I going to cancel out that 4? 4 sitting next to the M means multiply. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So yeah, we're in big kid land where we've got a lot of steps, but you know how to do these. Like, you know what to do. Some of y'all are just like, fraction. You're like kind of losing it. Remember, a fraction just means division. That's all a fraction means. It's not that scary. It just means you got to get rid of that bottom by multiplying it to get rid of it. Okay? So questions about number 1, now that we finally kind of got started a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys a couple minutes. I'm just going to break it up a little bit more because we're kind of struggling. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute. Take a look at number 2. Keep in mind, this is trapped above that 2. So you're going to have to get rid of that 2 before you do anything else. I'm going to shut up for a minute, give you a minute to look at that. I'll be back. So this very first step, remember that 4M plus 1 is trapped above the 2. If it were written like something like this, maybe, where you have the number like out to the side, then you could do something about that number first. But in this case, you can't. It's kind of like the cat stuck up in the tree right now. You got to get it out of this tree before you can do anything with it. So what is the inverse? What is the opposite of dividing by 2? Multiplying by 2, of course. However, we're going to do that in a moment. Yes. So don't do this. Don't do 2 times 4 and get 8 or anything like that. The whole point of multiplying by 2 is that these are going to cancel each other out. So you don't need to multiply that 2 by anything. You've got 4M plus 1. I multiplied one side by 2. So I've got to multiply the other side by 2. Negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Now you can deal with the 1 and you can deal with the 4. But when you see something just like this tomorrow, when it's stuck on top of that denominator, you got to get rid of that denominator first, okay? You can't do minus 1 on both sides because that's trapped above the 2. So now how am I going to get the variable by itself? I'm going to do the opposite of plus 1 with a. Now, what you could do, and actually, let me go ahead and show you this part real quick. I would not do it like this. Divide both sides. It's tempting because 16 divided by 4 is 4. It's tempting to want to do that. But remember that when you multiply and divide, you've got to divide everything by 4, which means you'd have to do that 1 divided by 4 also, and I'm not in the mood for a decimal yet, okay? So I would get rid of the minus 1 first with a, or I'm sorry, the plus 1 with a minus 1. And then here, people have been missing this part all day too. So negative 16, you're already negative 16. Then you go down another 1, you're going to be at negative 17, not negative 15. And then last but not least, divide both sides by 4. Now, just because it doesn't turn out to be a whole number doesn't mean you're wrong, okay? So you could have, I would take a couple different answers. I'll take negative 4.25. I would take that, okay? I would take negative 4 and a fourth. If you just leave it as the decimal, that's fine. We do want to get back in the habit because next unit we're going to be graphing lines. Fractions really help us to graph because we need a rise and a run. So personally, I would prefer that you get in the habit, might just be some extra credit for you, turn this back into a or into a fraction. Remember how to do that. You hit so let's say what I mean by that is that what I prefer is negative 17 over 4. But tomorrow I wouldn't count any of that wrong, okay? But it would be nice if you get in the habit of putting things in fractional form. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and skip to number, like I said, we're going to do the tougher ones first. So we're going to go to number 5 next. I'm going to give you about a minute or two to work on that one, and then I'm going to give you the answer. And then we'll go to that big daddy, number 7, which is really not as bad as you, that sounded really wrong. Okay, forget I said that. More clue. Don't do this. You guys always get to see what messes up everybody else. Don't do distributive property like that. Is the 12 sitting next to those parentheses? No, it is not. What's actually sitting next to those parentheses? A 1. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a minute, and I'll be right back. Enough. All right, so if I do just, first of all, I think it's a handy visual to draw that lines down the middle. First thing I need to do is this distributive property, right? That p minus 10 will not get out of the parentheses, so I need to do negative 1 times p and get negative 1p. Negative 1 times negative 10 is plus 10. Then I need to bring down that 12 that's just been sitting there chilling out. So because they're on the same side of the equal sign, put those together. Do not do this. This is what I've seen in a lot of places. First of all, you did 10 on the same side of the equal sign to begin with, and those are on the same side, which means you need to put them together. So 12 plus 10 is 22 minus 1p. Why did I just write that in red? I know it's wrong. Why is it wrong?
Because you don't subtract a p.
You cannot subtract a p from a number. Like terms are racist. They do not want to associate with anybody that's not like them. So the whole time while we've been doing this distributive property, we've been combining like terms. Now we finally have done everything we can do on that side. So now I'm going to bring down the 8 from the other side. So technically speaking, you can get rid of that negative 1 first if you want to. The negative 1 sitting next to the p means multiply. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. You could get rid of this first if you want to. But what you have to make sure you do is that when you divide everything by negative 1. Adding and subtracting, that's when like terms matter. Multiplying and dividing, it does not. I'd imagine what most of you guys did, though, is you probably got rid of that 22 first. Would I assume that's probably accurate? Most of you probably got rid of that. Oh, really? Oh, well, okay. Well, let's do that. What's the opposite of 22? Minus 22, right? So I'm going to cancel that out. I'm going to do it on both sides. So that cancels. Leaves me with negative 1p. 8 minus 22 is negative 14. Now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1 so that p is equal to 14. Yep. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just do 7 for you because basically all day today everybody's been like, and just sits there and stares at it. Well, we're going to kind of break it down. Okay. First thing, let me get rid of all this extra stuff up here. I'm going to give you your first clue about what you should do. I'm not going to do the whole thing for you. So we got this, and we got that. Okay, do it. I'm going to be right back with you. Look for that distributive property first. There it is in a couple of places. So I'm going to shut up for a minute, give you a chance to do that first part. First part for the distributive property, we better have this part down. 5x minus 35. Okay. So now I'm going to bring down the minus x. I'm going to bring down the 3x. And because that's a positive 5x, that's why I put a plus in between there. Are we okay with that first part? Okay. Distributive property here. All you got to do, parentheses, 2 divided by 5. Close the parentheses to make a fraction in your calculator. Multiply it by 10. If you did that correctly, you should have gotten 4x. Because 2/5 times 10 is 4. Now when I multiplied this together, I don't care. You could either say that it is, I just got that, I don't care song. Okay, so that's going to be either 6 over 5, which is what I prefer. I've shown you how to do that in your calculator. You would do 2 divided by 5 times 3, hit math, fraction. It gives you a fraction. That's my preference. And then the plus 3x is just sitting out to the side. So step 1, distribute. Step 2, do I have anything on this side that I can put together? Do I have any? I don't have any like terms over there whatsoever. Yeah, you do. I got like terms for days. I got a 3x that'll go together with a 5x. 3x plus 5x is 8x. And then if I take away one of those x's, that leaves me with 7x. Okay, that minus 35 is still chilling because I can't put them together. So where did I get that 7x from? I did 3x plus 5x. And then I took away one of those x's. That's where I got 7. Over here to the right, I also have some x's I can put together. What's 4x plus 3x? 7x. Plus 6 over 5. It's clicking. I have exactly the same variables. 7x, 7x. Are they paired with exactly the same number? No. 7x minus 35 cannot ever balance out with 7x plus 6 over 5. So this is an example of an equation that has no solution. So really, as long as you distributed correctly and then combine your like terms, you could be like, I'm done with this problem. Because you should notice, I can't solve this because 7x minus 35 is always going to be smaller than 7x plus 6 over 5. It can't be equal to each other. Okay, so that is a no solution. Really not that terrible, okay? Use your calculator. I've shown you how to do a fraction 1,000 times. Use it for that. And then just remember that you've got like terms you need to combine. Get those combined. All right, so the other one, so that takes care of like the worst of the worst, honestly. I'm going to go backwards a little bit and do, actually, let's just do one that's going to make us feel better. Here, we'll do number 6. Take a minute to do number 6. Number 6. What do I have that's on the same side that I can put together? I've got those x's. An x plus an x means I have 2 x's. So on this side, I have 2x plus 3. On this side, I have 2 x's. If you haven't already noticed, something's a little bizarre, keep going. One of those variables needs to be canceled out then. Doesn't really matter which one you get rid of. Both sides, you got a 2x. Because that's the opposite of the plus 2x to cancel out. So those will cancel, leave you with a 3. 2x minus 2x is 0. So look, do I have an equation that's true? No. And my variables canceled out? No, but we should have noticed right here something was up. If you have a little balance scale and you have 2 x's on the left-hand side, and then on this side you have 2 x's, but then you also have a 3. Which side's going to weigh more? This side is always going to be heavier. Can those ever be equal to each other? No. So right there, we should have noticed there's the same variable on both sides. One has a 3 added to it. The other's got nothing. Either way. So whether you noticed there that it would be no solution, or here the variables canceled out, but you were left with a false equation, either way, that should be no solution. For either one of those 2 reasons. Not 0, no solution. Same variables on both sides, but they're paired with a different number. Technically, there's a 0 here, right? Even though we don't really see it. Okay. Let's do number, okay, we can, all right, we'll do 8's longer, so let's do number 8 first. Although I think you're going to see this one really isn't that terrible once we go through. But I'll go ahead and do that one next. All right, I'm just seeing what time it is, so I realize we need to hustle a little bit. Okay, somebody tell me if I distribute. What do I have here? 6x. What if I distribute here?
12x.
So just, well,
12.
Correct. And then what if I distribute here? Exactly. So do we all see? What you can just go, honey. Whether you got 2, 3, whatever you got in the parentheses, you got to distribute whatever's in those parentheses. Okay. Do I have, so now I'm just going to bring down the other side. So so step 1, distribute. Done. Step 2, can I put anything together on this side to make it easier to work with? Can I put anything together on this side? What can I put together? I can combine x's with x's. That is correct. So that leaves me with 30x on one side. Okay. Now I'm going to bring down the 25x plus 24. So, I'm going to try to write that a little less messy. That's hard to read. Okay, so I've done all the simplifying I can do. Now, one of those variables has to go. It doesn't matter which one I get rid of. Personally, I would get rid of the 25x because that will keep me from having to deal with a negative. So what is the opposite of 25x? Minus 25x. And I need to subtract it from both sides that have the x. So those are going to cancel. That's going to leave me with 24. And then 30x, take away 25x, leaves me with 5x. And I've got to bring down the plus 12. So now this 2-step, we should be doing this in our sleep at this point. Subtract 12 from both sides. I realize I didn't leave myself a lot of room here, so I'm going to continue. So 12 is equal to 5x. Divide both sides by 5. I prefer that you leave it as a fraction, but if you simplified it to, 2.4, I'm okay with that too. The hard part is doing the distributive property and then combining your like terms. But once you get from there, once you get started, it's a lot of steps, but it's steps you know how to do. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and tell you for the record, although I am going to record it and add it on Google Classroom, numbers 10 and 11 and the ones just like it will be a bonus question. If you take the time to go back and look at it and make sure you know how to do it later, good for you. But obviously, because of class right now, we're not going to get a ton of time. I want to do one more. I want to do number 3. Actually, we may have time to get these all finished. Number 3, we can get this done. Take a look at number 3. Oh, listen to me. What are you doing here? Is that adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? That's dividing, which we cancel out by multiplying. Yes, so I'm going to cancel that out by multiplying by 5. Oh, okay. Hey, Julian offered me a great, let's go ahead and do that. I'm fine with doing that, Julian. All right, because we got a fraction button on our calculator. And so 2/5 sitting next to the x means multiply, right? Julian's right. Just divide both sides by negative 2/5. You can do that too. You've got the fraction button on your calculator. So if you do that, that would leave you, if you typed it into your calculator correctly, that should have left you with what, negative 35. Yep. So yeah, Julian, that's totally fine if you want to do it that way. 2/5 is sitting next to the x, which means multiply. Just divide both sides by negative 2/5. That works. Or you can multiply both sides by 5 and then divide by 2. Either one is going to get you the exact same answer. We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. Number 4. Number 4. I know what we need. You guys know what we need to do, right?
Can I go get my jacket out of the yard?
So negative 3 times negative 6x is positive 18x. Negative 3 times negative 5 is plus 15. If I cancel out that plus 15 with a minus 15, this part we should definitely be doing in our sleep at this point, y'all. So we should have negative 30 is equal to 18x. And then divide both sides by 18. If you do 30 divided by 18, I think that gets you a pretty messy decimal, if I'm not mistaken. So just divide it out, hit that math button, and that should give you the final solution of negative 5/3 as a simplified fraction. So you'll do 30 divided by 18, and then remember that decimal, you just hit the math button. And we're going to make it. We're going to make it. Last one that's not a bonus. Number 9. If I distribute negative 4x minus 20 equals negative 4x minus 6. What is that? That is no solution, friends. Because you got negative 4x on both sides with a negative 20. Now, keep in mind, if it had been like this, like let's say negative 4x minus 20 equals negative 4x minus 20, what would that have been? Infinite number of solutions, right. I'm not saying for a second one of those won't be on there tomorrow, because it definitely might be. Okay, I'm going to video myself working the last 2. They will be a bonus, but it would definitely be worth your while if you watch those later. But the rest of them, if you know what you're doing for these, you should be all good tomorrow. All right, so those are all the ones that were for credit, but I am going to go ahead and work these last 2 that are going to be for extra credit on the quiz tomorrow. I'm going to rewrite them down here. All right, so you're going to notice that first of all, in both cases, on both sides of the equal sign, am I bothering you talking right now, Boo? Okay, so here we're dividing by 8. Here we're dividing by 3. You could cancel them out by just multiplying by the least common denominator. What I would do actually is first cancel out dividing by 8. How do you cancel out dividing by 8? You cancel out by multiplying by 8, right? But obviously you have to do it to the other side too. And I'm not going to multiply yet, because then I'm going to cancel out this dividing by 3, and I'm going to do that by multiplying by 3 on both sides. So those 8s are going to cancel each other out. Those 3s are going to cancel each other out. So really what you're left with is 3 times m and 3 times 1, which 3 times m would be 3m. 3 times 1 would be minus 3. And then over here on the other side, you'd be left with 8 times 2, which would be 16. So again, this is a bonus. If this didn't make sense to you, don't get stressed about it, okay? So then to cancel out the minus 3, I would do a plus 3. So that leaves me with 3m is equal to 19. Then I see you, baby, one second. Then I'll divide both sides by 3. So I've got m is equal to 19 over 3 for the first one. So the big key to this one is to make sure that you cancel out those denominators. Since you've got an 8 and you've got a 3, just multiply both sides by 8 and 3, and then those will cancel. These will cancel. And just multiply what you've got left over and then solve. Okay, so once again, number 11, this is a bonus question. So I've got a 5 that's in this denominator, which I'm going to cancel out by multiplying by 5. And of course, if I multiply that side by 5, I have to multiply the other side by 5. So that will cancel. Then I also have dividing by 3 that I need to cancel out. So I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. Those are going to cancel each other out. So now let's see what I'm left with. I'm left with 3 that needs to be multiplied by that. So that'll be 9w plus 15. And then I've got this 5 that needs to be multiplied. So that was with 10w plus 10. I'm going to subtract 9w from both sides, although it really doesn't matter which w I got rid of. 15 is equal to w plus 10. Subtract 10 from both sides. 5 is equal to w.